Hi everyone and welcome to Footy Talks presented by Benjamin Moore. Great to have you with us. You can go to the Benjamin Moore website for inspiration about anything that you want to do at home. Lots of ideas on colours, DIY projects and much more as well. Thanks to Benjamin Moore for being on board with the Footy Talks show through this MLS Is Back Tournament. And we are now, of course, at the round of 16 stage. It's been a fairly entertaining group stage, boys, I think. And especially some great drama, some crazy games, and even down to the very last few minutes, KJ, of the final game of the group stage last night, people still waiting to find out what was going to happen.
Yeah, I won't lie to you. I actually fell asleep. I couldn't make that one. But I will tell you this. Come on, we were at a very early start with the Whitecaps the night before. I had another doubleheader. So I couldn't make it through that game. But it's probably one of only about 3 matches in the entire group stage I didn't watch. So I can say that I've really enjoyed the MLS Is Back tournament. I think there's been a lot of great storylines. I think they deserve a lot of credit, everybody, for getting it out there. I'm seeing different people within my circle and media, for whatever that's worth, but talk about other games and other teams in other markets, which I think Luke made the point at the very beginning of this tournament, Stevie. I think that ticks a few boxes as well. When you've got other teams and fans watching other games to see where they're playing next, that can help as well. So I think it's been an overwhelming success so far. And of course, there's going to be areas of games where you're like, oh, that was a bit of a dead game. But, that's football, that's sports.
Well, there's games like that at a World Cup, isn't there?
Yeah.
Where the best players in the world, the best countries. So, we expect that, KJ. But I'm with you. This has been brilliant. And I think the consistency, the regularity of the games has been great for MLS. It's the first time that, we're up and running with it, but everyone knows where the game is, when it is. It's there for you just to tune in and to watch on TSN. So it's been absolutely magnificent. Loved every minute of it. Some teams are better than others. Some teams are more prepared than others. But everyone in this last 16 has a legitimate chance of winning this tournament. It has to be the case. Certainly with no extra time, straight to penalties if the game's a draw, things like that. I think it's going to be very even. And I think we said a couple of weeks ago, didn't we, that the team that wins this will be the team that endures the best and the team that can stick together through difficult conditions. And so, I can't pick a winner, but I'm excited to see the remaining games and who it's going to be.
A couple of great guests on the show today. A little later on, we'll be joined by Toronto FC goalkeeper Alex Bono, who made his first start of the tournament and of the season in the final game of the group stage in that draw against New England Revolution. And we're also going to be joined by Philadelphia Union head coach Jim Curtin. Always fascinating to catch up with Jim, and his team has looked pretty good through the group stage and now heading into the round of 16 as well. So that's all to come on the show today. If you want to ask us a question, send it in on Facebook or on the Zoom Q&A as well, and we'll try and get to it if we can. Toronto FC, of course, are waiting now a round of 16 tie against New York City FC, who, if you were to cross it last night, just made it into the round of 16 with a late goal in the Houston-LA game. It was going to be TFC Vancouver all the way up until, the 89th minute? Pretty dodgy penalty, I think. I don't know what you guys think, but it was a little bit harsh. And if it wasn't for that, it would have been Toronto-Vancouver, which personally I was really looking forward to from an all-Canadian perspective.
We all were, Luke.
And the chance to get a Canadian team definitely through to the quarterfinals. But TFC New York City isn't bad either.
It's not bad, So I think it's actually really juicy, to be honest. There's so much you can get into with this New York City TFC rivalry that it's developing. I think already with the playoffs last year, they've already played each other this year. The Pozuelo debut game last year, that obviously a lot of TFC fans will reminisce and go back to the 5-0 thumping of New York City FC when we were all there in Yankee Stadium. So. It's a fun matchup, Stevie. If the Whitecaps would have been nice against TFC for us as Canadian broadcasters, but this I think is even more competitive game for Toronto FC.
Yeah, absolutely a more competitive game. I think an Eastern Conference rival, a team with much history in the recent history of Toronto FC. So, and I'm trying to put myself in the mindset of NYCFC case. It's so strange, you could probably get your socks and your pants in the bag and you're just ready to zip it up, and all of a sudden they're back in the drawer. You're still staying in the Swan and Dolphin and you're playing another game. So I don't really know what to expect for them. They've been a disappointment for me throughout this tournament. It has to be said. I think they've underperformed, KJ. I don't know what you think, but I still think Ronnie Dyler's really searching for that best 11, best formation, way to play, relationships there that he's trying to kind of figure out. And so in many ways, again, I don't know what to expect, but I think they're a dangerous opponent.
I think they're a very, very dangerous opponent. The first game was played at 9 a.m. and we've seen it every 9 a.m. game. Thankfully, they're gone. But every 9 a.m. game in this tournament has been very, very slow, very difficult to get goals and very few goals at all. They narrowly lost that game by 1-0 to Philadelphia. And Andre Blake was very good in the game. We saw the second game where they came out against Orlando and played a back three, which didn't suit their system whatsoever. Me and Luke did the game on TSN. Stevie, I know you were watching it really closely. We were back and forth talking about it. And then at the water break, they changed the game. They changed the system. They were losing 2-0 at that time. And then they were a better side, I think, for the majority of the rest of that game. And by the way, Morales didn't play. He was hurt. And then in the third game, it was one of those tense games where they knew they had to win and they didn't want to. It was a difficult match. So I don't think we're anywhere near the level what we've seen that they can get to yet. But now they've got that chance to go out there and show it because they've had that feeling in their mind all week that we might be back home this weekend. And now you give somebody a second chance. You get a second chance. Be careful of them. Always be wary of those who get a second chance.
Well, you better tell that to Mike on the Zoom chat because he says in relation to whether he wanted Vancouver or NYC. No, I love NYC. We batter them all the time, he says. Was in Yankee Stadium for the 5-0. Imagine doing the bounce with 30 minutes because that tie was over. Isaac says on Facebook, I remember from a previous show, you guys were in a great hotel for the playoff game in New York City. Like just
talk about that hotel again.
Thanks for the reminder of the shower that didn't work. Yeah.
Disastrous room. We moved it times, I think.
Horrendous. We moved, many times. Yeah, it wasn't great, but but no, it's a great point because TFC have absolutely bullied them. And I'll say this about New York City FC. They've promised a lot, and they've got the New York glitz and glamour. They've had the bright stars. They've had Villa. They've not won a big game in their history. Okay, they've won one playoff game in a matchup game. That was okay. You win a one-game playoff at home, but time is now. Time is now to start changing the history of that football club because if you lose this again, then you're just the same old pretenders. You're not a contender. You're a pretender. They failed in the big moments every time. And as the listeners say to you, Stevie, TFC for the majority of the time have been on that, but not just TFC. I think about the Columbus game when they went to Columbus in the playoffs a couple of years ago, and they melted down at the end. They conceded 2 goals late. Villa's on the field. They went back at home and they won, but they gave up the 2 late goals and they collapsed in that game. So they do have a little bit of history, even though the team is forever changing, of having a bit of a reputation of chokers in the big moment.
Yeah, I mean, I see a group of really good players, KJ. I just don't know what football player is going to grab the game by the scruff of the neck, right. and really own it and go and, be an Altidore or a Vasquez in the past, a Pozzuelo, like really grab the game. I love a lot of their players. Morales is awesome. Heber can have his moments. Castellanos, Tajuri Shradi. They've got so many options in that front area, but I've never seen one of the guys really grab a big game and go and just say, right, I'm going to make sure we get the victory here. So that's the question that I have as an analyst for them. Who's going to grab the game? Who's going to come of age as such? Young players. Castellanos is a brilliant player. Is it his day on Sunday night? Is he going to grab it? Is he going to be the one? But they need to have a moment like that. They need a guy who's going to, rise above the kind of average or the normal and go and grab it. And so that would be my sort of team talk if I was Ronnie Dyler.
And how fit is Maxi Morales is the other question, KJ.
Well, he came on. He came on in the last game for 10 minutes or so from Matrica. They obviously need him. We're going to get the brilliant Jim Curtin on shortly. We can ask him one of the questions about how to do with New York as well. He knows them very well and very familiar, so he is fascinating. But as Stevie said, I think he's their best player. He had, 20 assists last season? I know Major League Soccer shall we say, generous in their handing of assists. And the assist stat isn't something that I like to refer to very often, but I refer to it to say that he is a massive player in their team. And, he can be their Pozuelo. He's got everything about him to do that. It was worrying when he missed that second game because many people thought he was going to be out for weeks, not just a week, but he did come on in that game. So we'll have to find out. But, don't sleep on Matrica either. This is a player that is a wonderful player that can drift off from the left-hand side. And the other thing about him is that Quinton Westberg's going to have to recognize that he doesn't have a tell, but he can shoot the ball from distance very, very quickly. And he's got a wonderful shot on him. So they've got players from distance, Stevie, that Hebert's almost like the penalty box reference point, a great finisher. But when you think of Matrica and you think of Castellanos and Tajiri Shradi, those players, I'm not mentioning Maxim Rav, a lot of shots can come from outside the box as well. So I think TFC defenders need to try and put their body on the line and try and stop them getting to Quinton Westberg, because a couple of times they can just fly in.
Yeah, that's a strength. Their fluidity is their strength for me, KJ. The interchanging of the positions. Morales is a big one. Is he going to be fit? Is he going to play? If he's fit, he plays. I got a feeling he'll come off the bench. And so you look at who are the four forward players there. Hebert this tournament for me has been really disappointing. I've been surprised at how off the pace he is. So for me, Castellanos leading the line is the best option for NYCFC. And then you've got a number of wide guys who can play, 10 and in the wide areas. So I agree with you. They've got some wonderful shots. Medina's already scored an outrageous goal this tournament. Yeah. Snapshot for the edge of the 18.
And he needed that, didn't he? He's not been ruthless enough for them.
He never played well, KJ. He just had that moment. But that's the quality that he has. Tajiri Shradi, the goal in the last game there, terrific finish as well. Yeah. So, you can't take this team lightly. You can say all you want about the history and the playoff games and the way they're playing in this tournament. But they're guys, you've mentioned them, we've mentioned them.
Dangerous team.
On the back of the net in a second. So that's what Greg Vanney and TFC will be wary of.
For TFC, Jonathan Osorio could be back. He's been out with that quad injury, of course, getting closer to returning. We saw Josie Altidore coming off the bench in that last game and playing up top with Ayo Akinola moving out wide a little bit. So we can get into a little bit what you might expect from Toronto FC. And also a little bit later in the show, we'll be joined by TFC goalkeeper Alex Bono, who made his first league start since May of last year in that final game of the group stage against New England Revolution. But great to be joined today by the Philadelphia Union head coach, Jim Curtin, here on Footy Talks, presented by Benjamin Moore. He'll be with us in just a moment's time from the luxury of the Swan and Dolphin in Orlando, as the MLS Is Back tournament has reached the end of the group stage and now is heading into the knockout rounds. And a team that we saw just a few days ago on TSN, New England Revolution, will be the opposition for Philadelphia Union and Jim Curtin. Great to see you, Jim. Thanks for taking the time out to be with us.
Thanks a lot for having me, guys.
Let's just start with a big picture then. How's it been going for your guys? We've seen you play. We've seen you play well and advance to the next round. On and off the pitch, what's it been like for you in this tournament?
Well, I think like a lot of things going on in the country right now and the world, you've had to adjust and adapt to things. Obviously, the league did a great job getting this competition going through some difficult times early on with Dallas and Nashville. You're starting to see the soccer come back and look a little sharper as the games have gone on, but certainly there's been some rust with teams for sure, which is natural after such a long layoff. So I think, like I said, the games have improved. It's challenging with all the variables that go into it, the 9 a.m. kickoffs, the 10:30 p.m. kickoffs, the heat. But overall, you're starting to see some better soccer. And now, we're fortunate enough to move on into the knockout stage. And now the elimination games start, and this is when you learn the most about your team and the most about your players, young and old. The games of pressure, the games of consequence. So it's going to be a great exercise for our young team to be a part of.
Jim, we've loved covering your team and your games so far for the tournament. We've done them all pretty much up here in Canada. We're a big fan of you and your team. Where are you feeling right now with your side? I know I heard you say you're still looking for a full 90 minutes, but from our point of view, it's, Stevie and I have said often, I think you're one of the best teams we've seen so far throughout this tournament. A lot of fluidity and a lot of continuity that you've been able to play with the selection.
I appreciate that a lot. That's a great compliment. And look, ultimately, as coaches, the best compliment you can receive is other coaches, other GMs, other players, and the media say, I enjoy watching your team play. That's kind of the ultimate. It's as simple as that. The wins obviously are nice, but I think we have an entertaining team, a team that punches above their weight in a lot of ways, but also plays a good brand of soccer both offensively and defensively. And it's no secret that we'll give young players an opportunity, and some of those young players have really stepped up in a big way for us. So we're getting talked about now more and more as a team that's on the rise, a team that's in the upper echelon. As the head coach, I tend to pump the brakes and say we're not quite there yet with with the TFCs and with the LAFCs. We're not quite there yet, but we are, trending and moving in the right direction, which is a real positive for the organization.
Jim, what I love about you guys is you have a real clear identity to what you're trying to do. And there's one player I want to talk about in particular, a new signing this season, Martinez, at the base of that midfield. I think he's been awesome. He's very aggressive, so maybe you could talk a little bit about that. Something's on the line, but I think he's improved your team so much. Tell us what went into the recruitment of him and his play in general.
Yeah, so Jose comes from Venezuela, a league where, there's been a lot of financial issues. We've scouted him pretty heavily. We had people on the ground there watching him, for quite some time. We had the opportunity to meet with him. The league is a very physical one down there, and they get away with a lot more. So as a coach, I don't want to take that aggression from him. So it's that razor thin line now of him adapting and adjusting to, a new culture, a new league, new referees, and he's very physical. And the guy I compare him to now, I hate comparing all the time, but my brain just goes here naturally. It's Diego Chara in Portland, where it took a couple years for people to realize how good this guy was. Diego Chara, how many fires he puts out, and just his ability to pass better than people probably give him credit for, and do those things. So that's where I want Jose to take his game to. Got a red card after a review, so I have to do a better job of keeping him, on the right side of that razor's edge. But he brings a real presence in the middle of the field. And look, say what you want about MLS. The one thing it is it's dynamic and it's athletic and it goes end to end. So you better have guys that can run and fight. And Jose falls into that category for sure, and is a lot sharper with the ball. I'm glad you guys picked him out, because everybody right now is talking about Aronson and the natural ones, Mark McKenzie, the good young center back. But Jose also has had a really good competition for us.
You used the phrase there, end-to-end, Jim, and we had the chance to call the game against Inter Miami, that Shabilko goal. One of my favorites of the tournament in terms of just the speed that you got there, the way it went, the dummy on the way through as it came, the finish. It was just perfection in terms of the way that goal happened so quickly. Is that just the mentality you've put into your team, or can you actually coach that sort of thing? Is it a natural instinct within the group of players that you've assembled?
You can, and that would honestly be if I could, wrap up and say this describes how we want to play attack-wise in one goal. That would be it. It has a good defensive play, 120 yards from goal that leads to a forward pass, and then we do train it all the time in training. Just how quickly can we go from defense to attack? And it's our philosophy. We don't want to put 20, 30 passes together, because that allows time for the defenses to recover. We want to get to goal as quickly as possible. And the execution there by Jamiro, Brendan, and Casper, all played a really important role. But again, a lot of our philosophy is playing forward, being brave with our pressure. And in that one, we just executed really well. I'd rather us win the ball back a lot closer to the opponent's goal and maybe make it in less distance and less passes. But that was a really good transition exercise, and that's something we do work on a ton in training, and it's always great when it comes out in the real game. So a big goal for us, and that one was a special one.
Jim, I know as a head coach, you're often judged on results, but one of the many reasons why you're one of our favorites is I know how much you care about people. And, I know you had a lot of questions about Brendan Aronson this week and Mark McKenzie. And I'm thinking of someone like Kai Wagner, who's my favorite left back in the league right now. When you think about those players, I think that eventually they're going to be sold on, and eventually they're going to have big careers somewhere else. How much of an impact do you think of that on a daily basis when you work with them, and the care that you put into them to mold them forward, not only as footballers, but as better men?
Look, there's a lot of ways coaches can coach, so I'm not here to tell you which way is right. But everywhere I've been now, and the success that I've seen at some of the top clubs all over the world, it comes down to relationships one way or the other. You have to get along with your players. You have to get along with your staff. You have to trust them. You have to hold them accountable. And when the time is right, though, you have to let them move on, because you want to see them reach their full potential. So that's been my philosophy. I'm a coach that, I know that there's some coaches that don't really speak to the players until they pick the lineup, and that's their way, and that's been successful for them, and that's fine. but I want my players to have my phone number. I want them to text me. I want them to feel open to come in and have conversations. And sometimes the talks are difficult, but I think most players appreciate where they stand and just hearing the truth. So today's player is different too. They want constant feedback. They're on social media all the time. So I think you have to adapt and adjust. I consider myself, people ask what kind of coach I am, and they want me to get into tactics, and tactics are certainly important and things, but it still comes back to the relationships that you have with these players. Whether I've been to see Jesse Marsch this offseason at Red Bull Salzburg, or I've been able to watch Liverpool train for a week, or at Nuremberg or Hoffenheim, wherever I get to go in the offseason, it still comes back to that. Yes, you need talented players, you need the X's and O's and all the tactics, but these are human beings. I think sometimes we think professional athletes are superheroes or robots, and they're just people. They have good days, they have bad days, they have family members that get sick, they lose loved ones. So again, you have to relate to them on the real emotional level to obviously get the most out of them in the 90 minutes, and that's kind of been my philosophy. And I'm not here to tell you it's the only way to do it, but it's kind of what I believe in strongly, and it's led to some success along the way.
Jim, I want to ask you a continuation to KJ's question, really, because I know you bleed Philadelphia Union. You are an integral part of the makeup of this club. But I think Philadelphia Union have one of the best academies in North America. In fact, I know that. And I don't think you get as much credit as, say, a New York Red Bulls. But your philosophy with an Aronson and a McKenzie is to give them minutes, to give them exposure and chances to obviously move on. And then you have a pipeline there ready to go in. Like I said, you've been a part of building of that. Can you explain that a little bit to the listeners and the viewers here?
Yeah, I'm lucky to have gotten my start in the academy, and I got thrown in. When I say quite literally, we have programs that are just for, literally 2 to 4 year olds, and they threw me right into that. And I had a moment where I kind of looked around. I just played my last playoff game against David Beckham, and I found myself coaching 2 and 4 year olds, basically babysitting, and I'm going, how the heck did I get here? And they're blasting balls at me. So you had a humbling moment in my coaching career. And then, once I started to work with younger kids, age 8 through 18, you got to try things. You got to make mistakes. You got to learn how they learn, which is actually one of the most important. I coached girls and boys. We had a girls academy at the time too, which was really beneficial because everybody learns differently. Some guys learn quickly through a technical exercise. You can give one command and they get it. Some need to see it on a video. Some need to be just repetition over and over before they pick things up. So I learned a ton there, and I made mistakes. It gave me time to try new things and grow and learn. I saw it obviously in the academy level. I had some success there. Then was an assistant coach and got to see it from there, which was also eye-opening. And I think back to, some of the things I said as an assistant to the head coach, I should have kept my mouth shut a lot more and not understanding what he's going through. And then kind of evolved to the head coach. And look, I came into the job at 34 years old, and I can say now I was not ready. I was not ready at all, but I had to take it because, like you said, it's Philadelphia. It's where I'm from. I'm not turning this down. I'm gonna do my best. Learned, and I had patient enough owners that believed in me and gave me opportunities to make some mistakes and grow and learn. And now we're starting again. We're not perfect yet, but we're starting to see the fruit of all that hard work. And then big picture wise now, little guys like I call them little still, Brendan Aronson and Mark McKenzie and Matt Real, guys that I coached since they're 8 and 9 years old, are now not just playing in our league, they're dominating. And I'm starting to hear them mention, to go to Germany and Scotland and play at Celtic and different things like that. And it's all speculation and rumors now, but the rumors are usually real, and that usually means they're good enough to do it. So that's kind of the big snapshot of what we're trying to accomplish. It's a little slower build than maybe Atlanta, who just came in and said, here's, we're buying, $15 million guys, and this is our way. And the great thing about MLS is there's no right or wrong way. I think we should all, as clubs, be able to do it any way we want, and this one suits the city of Philadelphia, and this is what we're going to believe in and the way we're going to do it.
Fascinating insight. Really appreciate that, Jim. We have got a Canadian slant on this broadcast, and we've been talking about Toronto FC against New York City FC. In a moment, we'll just ask you what you thought of NYC and you have a chance to play them. But interested in your thoughts on what you've seen from Toronto FC in this tournament so far.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Canadian slant. If I could live in Vancouver, I would sign up today. That place is beautiful. A little expensive, but it's beautiful up there. And Toronto as well, man. Awesome city. Toronto has been, I got to watch a couple games live. They allow one scout to go and watch, certain groups that you might match up against. And obviously we had New England as a potential opponent. So I got to see the Toronto versus New England game. So when you talk about Toronto, you talk about one of the teams that plays the right way. That first 45 minutes of that game, New England was chasing them all over the field. The combinations of Pozuelo, Michael, Bradley, just the combos they couldn't keep up with. So, on a different day, Toronto, and again, you talk about everybody's not completely sharp right now, but I've seen Toronto in their stadium there. That's usually 3 or 4-0 in that first half. So they're playing well right now. They're a dangerous group. They attack well. They defend well. Obviously, the new young striker adds another, horrible thing for coaches to deal with. And Josie's just starting to come back. So, again, they're one of the elite franchises in our league for a reason. They've done a great job building a sustainable winner now. Because early on, again, there were some struggles, obviously, in the organization, and now they've really got that right, and they're just a team. I actually just don't like playing against, to be honest, because they play good soccer. It's fun to watch, and that's kind of carried over here as well.
And your thoughts on New York City FC, Jim? Obviously, their opponent this week, and you've already played them. I know it was a tough game for you guys with the conditions, and your goalkeeper had a tremendous match that day, so it shows their attacking qualities.
Yeah, I wish I had the blueprint on how to beat them, guys. I guess the good factors are you can try to play them at 9 a.m. when it's 104 degrees. It slows them down a little bit. But no, you talk about on paper the talent that they have. It's across the board, and everybody talks about all the the attacking pieces, and it's a scary group attacking wise. But for me, Alex Ring makes them go. He's kind of their Michael Bradley, and kind of sets the tone for them. So you have to do a good job getting pressure to him to make him play, square and backwards. If you can do that with Ring, that's a really good starting point if you're going to have a chance. And we did a decent job of that. We had Martinez, I'll just say, kick Morales a little bit and be physical with him just to disrupt things. That's also a very important piece, because if you let him, turn and face goal, he's going to set up, he did it last year, about 20 assists and then, double-digit goals every year. So he's a real handful. So you have to be physical with him. And again, talent-wise, they're a very good team. But, you got to be physical and make the game as hard as possible. And then obviously you're going to need your goalkeeper to, in the key moments, make big saves. That's what this competition's been about. I know they have a new coach too, and you can tell they're still feeling him out. You can tell they're still adjusting and adapting to a new coach, which always takes a little bit of time. The one thing I can say, and it jumped off the tape when we scouted them, their counter pressing is actually better than it was before. So he's got the front three. When they lose the ball, it used to be they would kind of be a little bit lazy. So they're actually hunting the ball pretty quickly right now. And again, I actually feel it's kind of, this tournament's broken down a little unfair for certain teams. With some of the matchups, you look LAFC and Seattle are playing. You look at Toronto and NYCFC. It's like it kind of broke unfair for Toronto.
Don't feel sorry for them, Jim. It's good for you.
It is good for me. I know I want them to beat up each other, but you know what I'm saying. Some of these matchups now that you're seeing pop up, you're like, ooh, that should be a final, not not a first round game. But yeah, it's been a great competition, I have to say. It's been unique. You've seen how important the mental side of it. The teams that have approached it the right way, mentality-wise, are the ones that are thriving. And I think it's some didn't approach it well, and they're the ones that maybe have a lot of talent but are already on the way home. So it's been a big factor in this thing.
Jim, just before we let you go, one quick one on, I'm sure the TFC fans listening would be interested to hear about, you were at Chicago with Bob Bradley, of course, for a while when you were a player. Michael Bradley was around at that time. Did he visit training most of the time? What age was he? Did you get to talk to him at all?
So everyone wants to talk about the recipe for how we develop young players. I think Michael being in that locker room, and I was only 20 at the time. Michael was probably 12 years old in and around the team. Just being around Risto Stoichkov, Peter Novak, Chris Armas, Jesse Marsh. There's so many more. Josh Wolf was in there. You can go through. It's like there's 15 guys that are coaching now. Zach Thornton's coaching. Ante Razov. He was around those guys, and he would jump in possession games. As a 12 and 13-year-old. And he'd make mistakes, but he could kind of hold up. And again, I think the parts when he would jump in training were probably great for him, and he would say that. But I think the most important thing, and you see it in pro sports a lot when there's fathers or former players that have kids, just being in the locker room and feeling what it's like and knowing how to carry yourself. I think that's probably helped Michael a great deal. And that's why he's one of the best leaders our country's ever had, in terms of winning games, knowing how to step up in big games, doing it in a kind of a quiet way and leading by example. So Michael's one of my favorites. It's been awesome to watch his career and kind of go and develop. It's been special. But yeah, certainly Michael is a winner. That's the best way I can put it. His father is as well. And there's no coincidence that, Bob was kind of the mentor and the one that led a group of players. At the time, we had only 18 men on the roster. I think 14 of us now are either general managers, coaches, or assistant coaches in MLS. So it's quite a tree that he's created internationally as well. So it's a great family, special people, and I can't say enough good things. I also had the experience in Chicago, though, of the first Toronto home game, where the Dicchio game. That was not fun. It was all the stuff getting thrown out on the field.
Seat cushions,
the team covers, that was wild too, man.
Yeah, that was some game. I didn't realize you played in that, did you?
Oh yeah, I'm in the highlight. Danny Dicchio scores right on me. I'm the guy with the big blonde afro in that game. Didn't go so well.
Jim, really appreciate you taking the time. We are the three presidents of the Toronto branch of the Philadelphia Union fan.
100%.
So, appreciate it.
I appreciate the support, guys. I think that was that the first home game, right? I can say honestly, they do the national anthem. They did the U.S. national anthem, and then the Canada kicked in, and I actually do remember being like, holy bad word, this is nuts. It had that feeling of like, okay, this is going to be different in that stadium. And it was I got hit with a seat cushion or two that day. That was not my finest moment.
It was I think it was the second home game. They played KC and lost 1-0. It was
first
the first
home goal
they scored at home, and it was the official
gotcha.
opening weekend, which is why they had the seat cushions.
Yeah,
but I'm with you. I just moved across that previous December from England, and when that national anthem went and the scarves went up, that was the moment I thought, wow, this can work. This is unique, and this is not, it doesn't have to be what we see elsewhere. This is Toronto, and this is what the game means here, and this is what it can mean moving forward.
Totally, and that hit me when I was a player in the game, and I was kind of like, uh-oh, that's only happened one other time, and that was in Guatemala in a Champions League game where I got hit with a bag of urine. So that was a scary environment. I'll just say. Sorry if you guys are keeping this PG, but I'm doing my best.
No, Jim, it's always a pleasure. It's great to hear the stories.
Best of luck in your round of 16 game against the Revs and for the rest of the tournament. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks so much, man.
All the best, Jim. Keep in touch. Thank you.
Greg Curtin with us on Footy Talks. Really appreciate him taking the time. Fantastic conversation. One of the best there is in Major League Soccer.
100%.
Just hearing we're going to get Alex Bono is on with us right now. And then we're going to have a surprise extra guest as we have a second head coach joining us towards the end of the show. Brian Schmetzer has agreed to come on from the Seattle Sounders. So an all-star lineup today.
100%.
Absolute all-star lineup on Footy Talks today.
Every lineup needs a goalie, though.
Hey, yeah. We've gone from one floor of the Swan and Dolphin Hotel with Jim Curtin to another floor of the Swan and Dolphin Hotel. I wonder who's got the bigger room there, Jim or Alex Bono, who's with us now. Jim Curtin as a manager probably has a full suite, although. How's it been, Alex?
I can tell you that I do not have one of the bigger rooms here at the Swan and Dolphin Resort, so I would assume that Jim Curtin's got a much bigger room than I do.
Great to have you on the show. It was great to see you back in between the posts of the game against New England Revolution. How was it for you to be back out there making your first MLS start of the season and for about a year, and also to get the clean sheets as well on the day?
Yeah, it was huge. I felt really comfortable, honestly. I thought that I've been training well leading up, and I was excited to get back in the action. It's been a while since I've been fortunate to get a game, and so I was grateful that Greg decided to put me in for that one. And it felt good. We defended really well from start to finish, especially in that 9 a.m. heat. But at the end of the day, we came out with a point, and we ended up winning the group. So I was proud of the guys, and it felt really comfortable, really good to be back out there.
Alex, we know in every facet and every life, continuity is important. We went back in the studio for the first time in 4 months, and it felt a little different. You're a professional athlete. Take us on that mindset a little bit when you went all across the field there to play. And how important was it for you to make sure that it didn't feel like you hadn't played an MLS game as from the start for 14 months?
Yeah, definitely. For me, we do a lot of 11v11 full field in training, so I try and take those moments, those experiences, and treat them like real games. And if you do that, it gives you a really good opportunity to kind of block out. And it's easy down here. There's not much of an atmosphere. So, but it gives you an opportunity to block out the atmosphere, block out the pressures of being a game on television, that sort of thing. And it just kind of feels normal. It feels like you're in a training session. It feels like something you've done a million times over again every week, even if it's not on the weekend. So I go into those training situations and treat them like game situations, just so when they come up and I am fortunate enough to be on the field, it feels pretty normal.
I thought you had a great game, Alex, and the levels of concentration are so important in a game like that, especially with the heat and the conditions. Obviously, not a lot of action. Tell us some of the things that go into your mindset. You've not played for a while. What are you focusing on going into that game? Are you focused on your strengths, your attributes, or are you thinking about certain criteria, before the game kicks off? Yeah,
thanks, Steve. And for me, I really wanted to go out there and focus on just doing my job, doing what I'm supposed to do to help the team out. And, I know that I'm capable of being in between the pipes every single game. And that's my mentality. And so for me, just to go out there and just play my game, do the things that I feel comfortable doing, know what I'm doing. Don't try and play outside myself. We have a great team. And in no way do I have to do anything outside of what my job is, what my strengths are. So I just went out there and tried to play my game, try to have fun out there. At the end of the day, it is a game. And it's the game we love, and it's a game we live. And for me to go out there and enjoy it and do it as much as I can and take these moments and really enjoy them and put a smile on my face. I came out for warm-ups, and before I started warming up, I looked over at John looked over at me. It felt normal, and I just smiled. I turned around, I smiled, and I started jogging. I said, okay, here we go. It's time.
The Benjamin Moore do-it-yourself play of the game is one that we have, a save that you made. As Stevie said, you didn't have to be too busy during the game, but you had to be alert when the opportunity came. Producer Kev will get him to share the screen here, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Just as he does, what about that mindset of a goalkeeper where you might have a quiet game, but all of a sudden you have to be called into action in a moment like this? Is there a trick or something that you use to make sure that you're always staying alert, even when it's a quiet game?
Yeah, that's the life of a goalkeeper, right? You can spend 89 minutes doing basically nothing, and you have to pull off something in the 90th minute to help your team out and help secure points. So for me, yeah, it's staying engaged. I try and stay engaged through communication, try and make sure I'm always talking with the guys, and even in a normal game situation with fans, even if they can't hear me, just for me to know that I'm talking and staying engaged and focused on what's going on in the match, it really helps you out when it comes down to these moments where you're called on late in the game when you've been more or less, pretty quiet the entire way through.
Alex, if you don't mind sharing with us and the TFC fans how this journey's been for you over the last 12 months. Obviously, not getting too personal because that's not my place. But, for me, unquestionably, at least one of the top 10 best goalkeepers in the league. But you're not able to play because you were replaced by another good goalkeeper in the league. And that's just the nature of the goalkeeping position. So, and you're also, an outstanding professional and a great personality that can be infectious to others. So how has that been for you when you've not been able to deliver on the field and show the difference? But I know, talking to your teammates, that you can still make a big impact on their personalities and their overall mood during the camp.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And obviously, it's never difficult when you're in a situation where you're at the top. You feel like you're the guy, and then all of a sudden you kind of get knocked down a couple pegs. And for some people it can be detrimental. For some people it can be a real strengthening moment, a moment where you have to look inside yourself and dig deep and say, okay, listen, these are the ebbs and flows of a career, of a season, of a game, and to take those along with you. And it's about how you react to it for me. And obviously it's something that you hope you never have to face, but when you do, it's about how you react. So for me, just coming in every day, trying to put a smile on my face, try and go out to the training field and get better and try and improve and try and make it so when I do get another opportunity, I'm best prepared to do that job. And it's never difficult. It's never easy. It's never easy. But at the end of the day, this is the game. This is the nature of the beast. And if you can take that and not take it too personally, and say, listen, it's going to come back around. But when it comes back around, you have to be ready to kind of take the bull by the horns and make it your own. And if you're not, you can start to unravel pretty quickly in this business.
Well, us guys covering this tournament are fascinated with the bubble, and I want to ask you about a little bit about that, but more specifically about the big team golf game. Was it yesterday or the other day?
Yeah, yesterday.
Where did you shoot? Who won the tournament? How did it go?
I like to golf. It's tough in Toronto when I have to go 45 minutes to an hour outside the city just to get a 9-hole or a round in. But yeah, it's good fun. Behind us we had Aro and Pablo, and I can tell you what, I don't know if they've ever held golf clubs in their entire life. So, they're like 50 yards out, and I'm thinking they're going to take a pitching wedge or something. They've got driver out, just trying to get the ball on the green. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I won my group. I had Eric and Griffin Dorsey, and Jacob Schafferberg left after 9 holes. His concentration wasn't quite there, but I did win my group, which is it doesn't happen often. Griffin Dorsey's a pretty good golfer. Zav can hit the ball around too. So I was proud of that one. I'm going to take that with me, and I'll make sure that they hear about it until the next round we play, and I get knocked down a couple pegs.
How's it been for you and the rest of the team in terms of living with each other basically 24/7 for, I'm not sure how long it is now in terms of how many days you've been down there, but do you still like each other? Greg Vanney said when you went there that you were a good group of players, you'd been through a lot. Even the last few weeks leading up to it, he said that with everything going off in the world, he felt you'd come closer together as a group of players. So I suppose that is the question. Do you still like each other?
Yeah, we have a great group of guys, which I'm really, really grateful for. Is that no matter what happens in a game, it's very uplifting. After we were obviously disappointed after the DC tie, but there was never a moment where people got angry at each other and no one got frustrated. It was very uplifting. It was very keep the confidence flowing throughout the group, because we do have a good group on and off the field. So we got a couple lounges up here on the team floor that guys are always hanging around in, and we have a fun group of guys, and we like to hang out with each other, and that's awesome for the camaraderie both on and off the field. So from that perspective, it's been all right. We come from a place where in Toronto where the organization is top class. It's top 2 or 3 in the league for sure in terms of player treatment, facilities, the way they take care of us. And to come down here, it's obviously different. It's different. You see some guys that kind of don't get that treatment. They're like, wow, this is great. And we're like, okay, it's our bubble. We're together in this, and we're going to make sure we come out alive and on top.
Alex, you're into the knockout stages, and I know you know me a little bit. You know that I'm a little obsessed with penalty shootouts. So I have to ask you a question about this before I let you go. How's the preparation going for that? I'm actually talking to Q later on this afternoon a little bit about that as well. Mm-hmm. But and when you look back at your penalty shootouts, the Montreal one and obviously the one in Guadalajara, I think I was close to your goal for both of them. I remember actually the image of your face in the Montreal one where you just felt you couldn't do anymore because you had very little penalties to face. Is there anything you've learned from that, and talk us through the preparation for what's coming for potential shootouts?
Yeah, John Conway does an awesome job of he gives a scouting report before every game of the potential PK takers, and there's clips of their last PKs and everything. So from that perspective, we're always prepared in terms of what to expect. Obviously, when you're in the heat of the moment, the penalty shootout comes in with the added pressure. It's a little bit different. You kind of maybe catch a read or you have a gut feeling and you just kind of go with it at the moment. But we're always looking at it before every game, and going into the knockout round is no different. We'll be prepared. We'll know the tendencies of each guy. We'll have watched all their penalties over the last few years to make sure that when it comes down push to shove, we have a good idea of what we're doing.
Well, TFC New York City is the game coming up. You guys have had some pretty good tussles in the last few years. Would you have preferred Vancouver, do you think, as a team? That was the other option until late last night. And were you watching the game to find out, the Houston-LA game, to find out what was coming?
Yeah, I was definitely watching. Down here in the bubble, there's not much else to do besides watch all the games that are being broadcast. So I was definitely watching. For me, it didn't really matter if we played, top or bottom or anyone else in between. We have a ton of confidence in our group. We have a ton of ability, and like you said, we've been through the ringer in regards to these tournament formats over the last few years, and we've kept the core basically the same. And it always seems that when it comes down to the knockout round, the winner go home mentality, we just seem to turn it on to the next gear and show up even more than we have in the previous game. So for me, it didn't really matter who we were going to play. We have enough confidence in ourselves, and we're good enough to beat anyone we're on the field with.
Thanks, Alex. We appreciate you taking the time to join us. Congrats once again on the performance against New England, and good luck for the rest of the tournament.
Thanks guys. Stay safe up there.
Good luck.
Alex Bono, TFC goalkeeper, with us live on Footy Talks, and still to come in a few moments' time, we'll be joined by Brian Schmetzer of the Seattle Sounders, as this edition just keeps getting better and better. You talk to Alex about Alex Bono there, KJ, and it's very unique in Major League Soccer under the salary cap to have two starting goalkeepers with a team, isn't it?
Yeah, no question about it. And I think that's got to be Alex's mindset, that he is still a starting goalkeeper, even if he doesn't get the opportunity to play as often as he does. And you can see that, look, there's not every day is going to be happy and rosy, Stephen. And, you've been there with that situation too, a little bit different, but you're still, when you're playing a specialized position like centre-back, and there's a depth chart, and, they can't play any more than three. So you know what that mentality is like. And I think what Alex said there was that you just got to be ready for the next opportunity. You don't know when it comes. And my mind actually went back to an interview I did with Alex and Clint Irwin before they played Sporting Kansas City in the home opener a couple of years ago. And I had them together the day before, and Alex told me that situation. And Clint Irwin got injured the very next day. At halftime, Alex Bono's warming up, and I'm on the sidelines, and he winked at me. He goes, just like we talked yesterday. And he was ready to go right there and then. And then he gets his opportunity. And I think that's what he'd be thinking about now, Stephen.
Yeah, I think he's so professional, and I'm not sure he would answer this question honestly, but at what point does Alex Bono think, I need to move on here, I need to try and force a move away to go and play football if Quinton Westberg is still the number one? I don't think he's there yet, but I think that's probably crossed his mind a couple of times, and that's a big thing. And I was there when I was 23, 24, KJ, told you the story before, but I'm at Newcastle, I'm at a big club in the Premier League, and I'm not playing enough minutes for my own, well-being and what I wanted as a professional football player. So I made a decision to go and play elsewhere, and I kept that mindset. Wherever I went a period of time without playing in a team, I chapped the manager's door and I asked them to, either explain to me why I wasn't playing or move me on and find another team. So I think Alex will be there soon, if indeed he's still understudy to Quinton Westberg. But at the moment, TFC are very fortunate. They've got a guy like that sitting on the sidelines who's more than capable of stepping in. He's won trophies. He's been there in big moments. He makes big saves like we just saw with the Benjamin Moore moment. And he's a guy who can be relied upon. But I don't think the luxury MLS with salary cap that can stay like that for too long.
You've talked a lot about Columbus, Stevie, over the last few weeks. Now the group stage is in the books. Who would you say is, at this point, your favourite to win the whole thing?
Oh, great question. Very even. On form, I would still say Columbus Crew. I really like them. They're tight at the back. They're scoring goals. Jim Curtin's Philadelphia Union are up there. But my mind always goes back to the guys that have been there, done it. And we're going to have a fellow on in a minute. Seattle Sounders, don't roll them out. They've not played the best football, but they're in the last 16. They know how to get it done. Obviously, TFC have been there. They've done it. I think they're one of the favourites. So, if I really had to make a decision and there was a considerable amount of money on it, I would go for the Sounders or TFC.
It's funny because it becomes almost like a different competition, guys, now. It's the one side of the competition is over. That you've accumulated the regular season points. You've accumulated enough points to figure out where you're going within the bracket. And now a whole new competition starts. And as Stephen says, it's a different mentality. It's knockout football. And I think what we've seen over the last few years of that is that the elite has risen to the top. The cream has risen to the top. The Seattle Sounders, your Toronto FC, these players that have built a mentality there that other teams have struggled. And we talked off the top that New York City FC have struggled to become one of those teams. Now, we may be talking in a couple of weeks of that team winning the whole thing, and they are amongst the elite again. But until we've seen it, it's hard to judge. They haven't had those reference points of success in the big moments yet. Now, we've talked about with Jim, we've talked about it with us, that we think that the talent is there for them to potentially get there. But right now, they're different. And I think a team like Minnesota United, who are playing Columbus, could be good enough to be there one day. Or Sporting Kansas City, who I've really liked in this tournament, I think it could open up for a team like that really as well. But when we handicap the teams as we're doing here on this show, I do think it's pretty fair to look at Seattle and Toronto because of what they've been able to accomplish. and dig deep in those moments. And I think of the Seattle game in the playoffs last year when they won 4-3 and, was able to beat Dallas in that moment and go to LAFC and produce a performance, a complete performance from start to finish, from back to front, top draw performance by the Sounders in that game to win that game, Stephen. And I think that's why we think of the Sounders the way that we do, because they're a little bit like the West Coast TFC. Fans on here are TFC fans, but that's how Seattle fans are, that they'll go into that game, even though it's LAFC, and expect to win.
Yeah, they have that mentality, don't they? They have big-time players, and it's easy to say when, you've won 2 MLS Cups in the last, 3 or 4 years. But that is the reference point. Winners are called winners for a reason. They've won. It sounds ridiculous, but these guys they've been there, they've done it. And it sort of doesn't really matter how they're playing. You look at Ladero and you see some of the experience there. Swenson in the middle of the park. Roldan's become such an established MLS player, a guy that I love. And I just see guys who know how to get the job done. So that's why we talk about the Sounders in such glowing terms, because, it might not always be pretty, but they're a team that is winners, perennial winners.
First game of the knockout round we'll have for you on TSN on Saturday night, 8 o'clock Eastern time, and it's going to be Montreal Impact against Orlando City. Orlando have got through as the group winners, Montreal just getting through with that win against DC United. But I certainly don't see this as Orlando being the huge favourites in this one, KJ, and I think a lot of it may be to do with the fact that the Montreal games we've seen this tournament, they seem to be improving with each game that they've played so far in different ways and finding a way. Maybe a lot of it is about Thierry Henry working out how best to play. And Louis Binks this morning said in his press conference that he prefers a back four. And we'll wait and see what Thierry Henry does moving forward. But it seems as if, and as we've talked about in this tournament, the winner isn't going to be playing their best game in game one. But Montreal are improving with each game they're playing in different ways.
They are, and Thierry Henry knows that. Thierry Henry's played in 4 World Cups and 3 European Championships, and by the way, won them. So he knows that how to progress through a tournament. It doesn't necessarily mean how you start. It's how you finish and continue to peak through. I do agree with you. I think they are better as a back four. Louis Binks has said that. Samuel Piet has said that. And I think we got the best out of them in match day 3 as well. And they are getting better slowly. I think I liked a lot of what they did against Toronto FC, and yeah, I don't think they'll be intimidated by Orlando. I'm fascinated to do all the games. It's going to be great. And that one's just at the top of the list to start our knockouts programming on TSN on Saturday night.
Yeah,
our third and final guest of the show is going to be Brian Schmetzer, the Seattle Sounders head coach, who was delighted to say he's joined us as we head back once again to the Swan and Dolphin Hotel in the grounds of Disney. Brian will be with us in just a few moments' time as his Seattle Sounders at this tournament will now face a round of 16 game against LAFC, and really appreciate Brian taking the time out from his schedule to join us on Footy Talks here today. Seattle, of course, were in Vancouver's group, so we got the chance to see them a little bit already in the tournament so far. Brian Schmetzer, head coach of the Seattle Sounders. We've already been down to the Swan and Dolphin Hotel a couple of times on this show today, Brian. First, we had Jim Curtin, and then Alex Bono. Yeah. Alex felt that Jim Curtin would have had a much bigger room or suite at the Swan and Dolphin Hotel. Do you have a floor to yourself, just for you, Brian?
No, absolutely not. I have this lamp that I keep lit at night. I have this curtain that I keep closed so my face doesn't look, so I can't see how bold I am on TV. It is a small room. It is a normal hotel room you would find in the Hilton or Marriott or anywhere across the country, but we're all making do.
Brian, on that, let's just start with your thoughts, both on and off the pitch, of how your group, as an experienced group who's won things in the past, has really, as a team, gone together into this tournament, both mentally and physically, and where you're at now heading to the knockout stage. How do you feel that you are together as a group?
Yeah, I mean, look, there were the natural human kind of reluctant to come down here with, you saw all the reports coming out of Florida. But I felt like our group was taking the whole stuff seriously already in Seattle. I mean, we did a good job. The medical staff, I can't talk enough about my medical staff. Even when we started the individual trainings up in Seattle, they did a tremendous job to get the testing done right away, 3 times a week when we were in Seattle. Obviously now we're getting tested every other day and then prior to game day. So once the players kind of figured out that that was just normal for this part of our lives, I think they accepted it. And, you know, as far as the team was concerned, look, we've always been kind of a slow starting team. And, you know, we tried to have good training sessions. We tried to, you know, message the group. I mean, last season, I think we started 5 in a row, and then we kind of went on a downhill turn. But, you know, I thought the first game against San Jose was okay. They're a tough team. They're tricky to play against. You know, we fell flat against Chicago. We have to admit that. We have to own that. But then the final game against Vancouver, and, you know, look, I felt sorry for Mark. I mean, he was severely underhanded. Now, that didn't matter the next game against Chicago because he did great. But, you know, against us, he was, you know, he had shorter rest. And, you know, I think we were a motivated squad for that game. And it turned out we had a good result.
Brian, before you came on, we were just talking about the wonderful qualities that you brought to that team and the qualities that your team has in big moments. And now, does it almost feel like a different format to you? So it's a knockout stage now, and that's when your team has been really so successful in those big moments. Does it feel like one tournament's over and another one begins?
Yeah. I mean, look, everybody, the talk at the breakfast this morning was, as we were watching that game unfold last night between LAFC and Portland, I mean, we were already, okay, who do we want? Do we want our arch rival? Do we want LAFC, a rematch? I walked past Bob this morning, and it was kind of like a sheepish kind of, well, okay, here we go. Like, you know, good game, you know, so either one of those two opponents is going to make for good TV. Hopefully, you know, the teams can produce a good match, a classic match, and, you know, we'll be ready. We'll be ready.
The thing that I admire and respect most about you, Brian, is your temperament, especially with this group. I think you're always a guy who keeps it pretty even keel. But how do you feel your team's progressed through this group stage? And, you know, where are you in terms of fitness and togetherness and you know, connection in terms of the football heading into the knockout?
Yeah, I mean, I think the team is good. I mean, obviously we have some injuries that are piling up. That's worrisome. You know, we understood that there was, you know, not the normal secondary preseason that we had coming down here. So we took a few knocks, but the group has always been strong. My mantra has always been next man up. You know, they gotta just step up, the next guy. So you saw that a little bit in Handwalla Bawana, you know, a young kid that really didn't get a lot of time, and he was very good against Vancouver. I mean, we were very impressed. You know, we had to push Gustav back as a center back the last game because Javier got hit in the head with that shot. So, you know, he goes to a different position, but he just makes do. So, you know, the group is pretty resilient. We've had some challenges, but again, I would say our mentality going in is, you know, it's anybody's game. I mean, it's MLS. I mean, we're very cognizant that on any given Saturday, Sunday, or Monday, in this case, any team can win.
It's MLS and any team can win, Brian, but we all know that come August the 11th, it'll be Toronto and Seattle in the final, because that's just how it works, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I like Greg. I mean, I like franchises. I mean, you know, it could happen. I mean, it's stranger things have happened. Put it that way. Nobody thought Toronto and Seattle were gonna meet for the third time last season. Everybody had anointed LAFC and Atlanta going through.
Brian,
KJ, we just talked before you came on though, Brian, about that LAFC. And I think it was Adrian Heath said yesterday or the day before about Columbus. He said there's not much point us turning up because everyone's anointed Columbus the champions of this tournament. Even though everyone talks about LAFC and what they've been able to achieve, your team, your fans will expect whoever you play, even if it is LAFC, that you guys are the favorites going in, and you've proven that in the past that you can do that. You have that winning mentality instilled in the club, don't you?
Yeah. Well, Adrian's a pretty smart guy. He's an older guy like me. We use whatever we can to get the team motivated. But you are correct. I mean, our fans are demanding. I mean, yeah, it's okay. We've been a successful franchise, but look, we got some stick from our fans after the Chicago performance. Did we want to stay here in the bubble? Were we just down here so we didn't get fined? I mean, it was coming from our own block. And so, you know, the or it is, it's always great that our fans have that passion, because I don't mind that. I don't have any issue with that. They have to understand that, look, it's pro sports. At some point, we're going to have a lull, or we might not win a game, or, it could be Monday. You never know. But the one thing I always will guarantee, as long as, the staff is together, my staff is together, and I might be the nice guy, but I got, Jimmy and Preki and Gonzo behind me. So they're the ones.
We know Preki from his time in Toronto.
Yeah. So they pick up some of the slack for our bench behavior, my calm demeanor. But the one thing I guarantee him, we're a staff that really, we put a lot into it. We put a lot into the team, and we will always have our team ready. They won't give up. They won't quit. If they do, then I'll be the first one to hold up my hand and say, well, it's time for me to move on.
Brian, one of the big pleasures for me in my job is getting to interview people like you and spending some time with you over the years. And we talked a little bit about this in January in Los Angeles, but I do want to share this story with our viewers and listeners, that when Nicholas Lodeiro lifted the MLS Cup in Seattle last November, I was fortunate to be about 10 yards away from you and your beautiful family. You didn't go up on stage with the players. You stayed away. Maybe just share with our viewers why you decided to do that and what that moment as a Seattle lifer meant to you.
Yeah, it was the same when we lifted the trophy in Toronto. One of the things I firmly believe in is when the team is going well, the players deserve the accolades. And when the performances aren't great, the coaches have to accept responsibility. That's one of the things, that's one of my principles that I use. The other thing that I always try and message the players is that their careers are so small, so finite in the grand scheme of things. And it's the hard work that they always put in. I always tell them, I say, look at the guy sitting to your right, look at the guy over the left, look at the guy across the room. Those are the people that you have to make sure that you, hold accountable, that you work with them, that you work hard, you bond with them, you have that, whatever team sports is. And that's their moment up on stage. It's not my moment. It's not, okay, look, the owners are going to be up there and, people are going to be up there and there's going to be hangers on and all that. But it's just not, I don't feel it's my moment. It's the players' moment. They're the ones that have put in all the hard work. Yes, coaches work hard. We're a big part of the organization. I get it. But that singular moment, I believe, is for the players.
Amazing. Love it.
Brian, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Always enjoy talking to my good friends from the North. Don't hold it against me that we can't visit you guys.
Just before we
can't visit you either, unfortunately.
We can't. Do you like the Kraken? Are you on board with it?
Yeah, I thought it was great. I mean, look, I'm a Seattle guy, and I thought it was very well done. I mean, I like the color scheme. I like the little hook. I like the Kraken. I thought it was good. Pro hockey coming to Seattle. Love it. It's another good thing.
Great.
Thanks,
stuff.
Brian. Have a great day and best of luck for the rest of the tournament and the round of 16 against LAFC.
Always a pleasure.
Right,
thanks Brian.
Thanks, guys. Take
Brian
care.
Schmetzer with us on Footy Talks today, presented by Benjamin Moore. What a show. And, one of the things that you get the chance to see these guys close up and personal, KJ, as the sideline guy on the pitch all the time. But whenever we've had the opportunity to travel and talk to these coaches, and when they come to BMO Field, Jim Curtin and Brian Schmetzer are two of the best in terms of just their openness, their happiness at talking about the game, building their relationships with us. Some coaches don't go into that much detail, don't take that much time, but they always give us their time. And I'm glad that today people watching have just been able to get a little bit of a window and an insight into how they run their clubs and just the kind of people that they are as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you added that last bit, because that's what I was about to say. We've got people here who share their time with us every week, and everybody's busy and we're all working, and that hopefully you guys are all safe and happy. Everyone's listening to this, but we enjoy talking to these people and these managers, and I'll go back and I'll write my notes, and they're informative for our broadcast. But hopefully you understand that it helps you guys too. The connection to these men and the connection to the sport that they can bring, and you can have a little bit of an insight of what it's like, Stephen, as a player to play for those two. We had Ben Olsen on as well, as a little bit of a different character, but it's still just as warming and friendly than those two individuals. And And that's the purpose of this show, is for those fans. You might be a fan of Toronto FC or the Whitecaps or Montreal Impact, but you can appreciate what these people do, and I think can help elevate Major League Soccer to another level, which is really important.
Yeah, well, Jim and Brian are two of our favourites for a reason, guys, aren't they? That they're honest, they're open, they respect the job that we're doing. You know, and for me, alongside you guys as a broadcaster, it's amazing, it's insight, it's there for the game. But as a young coach, I also look at guys like Brian Schmetzer, Jim Curtin, the way Jim's built himself up. He's talking about coaching 2- and 4-year-olds and thinking, what the hell am I doing here? But going through the hard yards, doing the real work, that kind of tells you the insight, the personality of both the guys. Brian took a long time to get to, you know, back to the head coaching role, and he waits and he's patient and he's a support for anybody that he works with. And for me as a young coach, I look at them, I admire the guys, I pick up, you know, insight and tidbits and ways to do things. But they're people guys, you know. They're forging relationships with their teams. That's the important thing. They both mentioned it there. There's no quick formula to it. You've got to get to know players, you've got to create a bond and a relationship, and then there's a trust, and then there's accountability, and then you go in with your tactics. But it takes time. They're two of the best at being patient, going through the hard yards and getting it done. That's why they're two of our favourites.
And that's why we ended up with 3 guests, because we put out these requests expecting some people to say no, and they were both right on it, saying absolutely yes, we'll come and talk to you. Yeah. Apologies to Eric, who says stop making me like our rivals. But it's true, when you get to know these people, you know, we've got nothing to do with Philadelphia or Seattle per se, but you just like people, you root for them to be successful. So we've got the round of 16 starting in the MLS Is Back tournament. We'll be there for the Montreal-Orlando game Saturday night on TSN, and then double header of Canadian action. Vancouver-KC, the nightcap. I think that one starts around 1 a.m. Eastern time on, is it? No?
Sunday night.
Just 11 on Sunday night.
Sunday night, yeah.
And before that, of course, it's TFC against New York City FC, which we're really looking forward to. Join us for the pregame on that one as well.
Just so you know, look, I also have to do the Philadelphia-New England game as well after the TFC game. After the Montreal game. You missed that one out.
Sorry, but I thought we called the game and you just sat there talking pre-game and half-time. I mean, you don't do much for 45 minutes. You get a break.
You're right. I understand that you guys are the engine, and I must
go eat the brownies that are in the green room.
I understand. I know where my place is here. You guys are the elite award winners. It's fine. You know, it's okay. It's all good. I'm just
taking brownie at half-time the other night from your lovely wife, KJ.
Yeah, see, I bring in the goods. I bring in the bacon
in the second half.
Okay, we'll see you all tomorrow on TSN for the start of the knockout round, Sunday for TFC. Really appreciate everyone who was on the show today.
Thanks,
Brian,
everybody.
Jim, and Alex Bono as well, and to you for being there on Footy Talks. We'll see you soon.
Have a good week.
Thank you.